And we were talking about how difficult people were finding it in the pandemic, being remote, being isolated. We were now trying to find a new normal, as well as juggling different priorities of, home life and work life had now completely blended and merged into one. So we were just sort of bouncing things around, kind of hashing some ideas about building, a business that could help support that. And it was him that turned around and went, Fiona, this is all you. He was like, you need to be doing this for yourself. And that's how the seed formed. So Oracle was the client that gave me my big break. They was like, well, we want to continue working with you, Fiona. Can you do this? Sure. Yes, of course I can.
It's too bad that it was such a small company. It could have been one of the big companies, but it was tiny little Oracle that wanted to stay with you.
Exactly.
We've covered so much in 10 minutes already. Maybe we should start the podcast now. Yo. Welcome to Find Your Freedom, the best entrepreneurship podcast. Be sure to check out all the tools and tips for aspiring entrepreneurs at findyourfreedompod.com. Today, we are joined by Fiona Roberts. Fiona is an executive coach specializing in leadership and talent development with over 15 years of experience in her field. She has worked globally with over 60 organizations, including Oracle, Nike, UBS. That's a crazy impressive list of companies. Her coaching and consulting firm, Bia Mindset, has helped businesses unlock their full potential. Welcome, Fiona. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
Fiona, we're so excited to sit down with you today. So we were introduced to you by Bob Thomas, which was one of our prior guests who just rocked it on episode 31. If you are watching this now and you haven't checked out Bob's episode, go back and check that out. He said, man, you guys got to get Fiona on your show. From the Goldman Sachs Small Business Program, they got to know each other and form this really incredible bond that endures to this day. And they still help each other out and root for each other. And they're part of this tight tribe of graduates that came out of the program. So we have to start by asking, how do you get hired to consult for all these incredible, huge companies that we've heard of, from Oracle to Nike? I think I heard or saw UBS.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Fluke. No, I'm only joking.
All right, on to the next question.
I was very fortunate that I sort of transitioned into the world of business coming from the world of sport. So I did my master's in sports psychology, and I was always really fascinated in how people perform. And I also wanted to help people make a difference and help them be their best and get, fulfill their potential. And that's where I found out about an organization that was using sports psychology into business. And so I transferred or transitioned into the world of business. And it was through that consultancy that I grew and developed, and that gave me the opportunity to work with all of those clients that you've talked about. And then I was able to kind of build my reputation, build sort of the work that I've been able to do, that people seem to want to continue to work with me. So I will take that.
I can see why they'd want to work with you.
Doug actually thinks of himself as the Michael Jordan of real estate. So it's like a perfect...
there we go.
Exactly. I'm glad you said it, so I didn't have to.
Yeah, of course.
So for those who don't know about Bia Mindset, can you tell us what the company does and what separates you in the industry?
Yeah, so we're called Bia Mindset. It's named after the goddess Bia, who is the sister of Nike. So she's the goddess of force, power, and might. So it kind of resonated with me with my backstory of sports, helping people to really fulfill potential and be the best version. And so we are a performance management consultancy, and our aim is to help organizations develop their talent. So we do that through coaching, leadership development, resilience, which is like our big sort of theme across everything, actually, is like, how do you build your resilience to maintain and sustain that high performance over long periods of time? So it's not just one-offs, which again is a nod to my sporting days. Is, it's competitive, it's really competitive, and I think in sport it's magnified because you're on you win or lose every single day. It's right there.
Yes.
And so it's kind of trying to take some of those lessons into it happens in business all the time, but I think sometimes we take that for granted. And so how do we help people, one, find the purpose of why they're there in the first place? We should enjoy what we're doing. And then building that resilience, building that way of being able to work to their best and also with others as well.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I had never even really thought about it that way until you described it a little before we started the podcast, just like how similar the sports world and mentally challenging and the psychology behind it really is to the competition of business and business leaders and how they have stress and anxiety and performance. And those are like a really, really strong correlation. So I can see why Bia has done so well, because that makes like perfect transition to the other side.
It's huge. I think as well, like a lot of the time what I find when I go into organizations is sometimes managers find themselves in the position of a manager and leader and have got a team of people, but have they really, because they've been great at the role. So I've been promoted because I'm really, really good at, what I was there to do. But now it's a completely different skill set. Now we're not asking you to do what you've been doing before. Now we're asking you to get the best out of other people. And that's a really different, shift. And I think that there's not a lot or not enough done to help with that transition really successfully, of understanding that now I have an impact on others' performance, not just my own.
So you referenced that you worked for another firm that was sort of doing a similar thing, and then you transitioned to starting Bia, your own company as an entrepreneur. Can you talk a little bit about sort of your success in the corporate world and when the thought of stepping on your own really came to mind?
Yeah, it's a bit back to front, actually. So I worked at the consultancy in the UK. I moved over to the US about nearly 8 years ago. And when I moved over, I continued to contract actually with the company that I was working for in the UK, and was still sort of figuring out what I wanted to do. I came from a team sport, so always felt like being part of a team. And there was so many people that had said, "Oh, Fiona, you should set up on your own." And I was just like, "Oh, I'm not really interested." And, just kind of did my own thing and carried on doing the contracting work. And it was actually through the pandemic is where I was having a conversation with my friend, because he was helping me. I've had a lot of problems with my knee and I was going in for knee surgery. So he was helping me sort of train to get as strong as possible for that. And we were talking about how difficult people were finding it in the pandemic of being remote, being isolated, not being connected to work, how we were now trying to find a new normal, as well as juggling different priorities of, home life and work life had now completely blended and merged into one. People weren't able to go to the gyms to find this outlet, this kind of physical release. So we were just sort of bouncing things around. He's from the world of personal training and I'm from the world of, sort of like mindset. And this, like I said, this resilient piece. And so we were kind of hashing some ideas about building, a business that could help support that. And it was him that turned around and went, "Fiona, this is all you." He was like, "There's so much here that you're doing." He's like, "I was like that minute little part here." He was like, "You need to be doing this for yourself."
I love that.
And that's how the seed formed. So I kind of moved from I don't want to have a business because I don't want a business for me. I'm not interested in that. I want to be part of a team, to actually, I really believe in what I do. And why would I not want to get this out to as many people as possible? So that was the starting point. But there's a little bit of a twist in the story to there is
all right, we're ready.
Yeah.
Hit us with the twist.
The twist is that so I'm like carrying on as normal, doing my consulting work and sort of building this idea of what my business would look like in the background. There wasn't a burning platform, so there was no like rush. I could sort of do it in my own time. And then the company that I was was contracting for, they actually got bought by a bigger consultancy. And so some of the clients couldn't transition over because of a conflict of interest.
Wow.
And so Oracle was the client that gave me my big break, I guess, is that they was like, "Well, we want to continue working with you, Fiona. Can you do this? And can you run a global program?" And I was like, "Sure, yes, of course
I can run a global program."
It's too bad that it was such a small company. It could have been one of the big companies, but it was tiny little Oracle that wanted to stay with you.
Exactly.
That is really cool.
Like,
that is really cool.
So I've kind of done it a bit back to front, where I had a client and it was, I've only, my business launched May last year. And that part of that was because of, Oracle giving me this opportunity that I could not turn down. And so I really wanted to deliver a great job with them. And now as I've come into 2023 and met Bob on the Goldman Sachs, it's all about now like, okay, now I need to sort of expand my business and sort of be able to have this as something that's going to be here for the long term. So yeah, it's a bit back to front.
How did that feel for you when Oracle said, can you run this global program? Were you terrified? Or were you ready?
So there was like, so I always get this kind of like, I guess sort of butterflies kind of thing. But for me, that's exciting. It's kind of like, it gives me an idea, or it shows me that this is something that's really important and that I want to do it. And it's a challenge. And so I like to step up to that challenge. So it was exciting in that moment. And then the reality of, okay, now I need to really figure out how this is going to this is going to happen. But we did it.
Congratulations. So how did you start formulating? I know this is something that Bob talked about in his episode, these BHAGs, these big, hairy, audacious goals. So you already had a good foundation. So how did you transition to scaling Bia from this one large company to now, having multiple companies?
For me, it's always coming back to like, what's our vision and what's our purpose, and being clear on that. So I think it's easy to get bogged down in the day-to-day tasks of things that can be kind of mundane. And you kind of feel like, oh, I have to do these things. But really making it clear that you're relating everything that you're doing to getting you to where you want to get to. So for me, it was, again, going back to, like, why did I want to do it in the first place? Right. And so really being clear about what does that look like? If we were doing this really well, how will we know that we're doing it well? And then that kind of just formulated, what I would call like my goal plan. So really starting with my why and why I'm doing it, that vision that kind of gets me up and out of the bed, but then being disciplined and breaking it down into, well, how am I going to do that? And what are those what I call process goals? So breaking it down so that each day my to-do list is getting me one step closer to everything I do, because the life of an entrepreneur, it's usually you doing everything. So you've got to be quite clear of like, what are you working on, and am I being busy on the right things, or am I being busy like
just to be busy?
Sake of being busy, and that's sometimes hard.
You nailed a lot of big points there. I think like what was going through your head and how you thought about it, how you broke it down. The question that you started off with, which was, if we were doing this really well, what would it look like? I think is such a great place to start from, because then you can really lay it out. And, obviously when you're starting day one, you don't know exactly what that looks like, but it's good to start with a vision. Like you said, start with a why, and then that'll iterate and come into focus more and more as you go along. But that sounds like a great way to frame your mind as you're getting it going.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. So I have a small, because I think, and this is kind of where I go, like what I've learned from my days in sport and elite sport, work, like seeing this and then how it works into business. I remember there's the Olympics when they were looking at, the American swimmer, now his name's completely gone out of my head. I've got a
Michael Phelps
brain. Yes. Well, thank you very much, Jonathan. With Michael Phelps, and there was all of this, are you going to break the record of as many gold medals as you can?
Yeah, everyone's watching. The whole world's watching.
Everyone's watching. Yeah, everyone's watching, the whole world, and all of this. And I think if you look back on his interviews, actually, before his races, he talked about where his focus was, and focusing on the race, what I'm in control of, the next step. And that's everything, because everyone kept on going, do you think you're going to get the gold and all of this? And he kept on bringing it down to my next swim, my next race, the next thing that I need to do. But then after, when he'd actually achieved it and got all of those gold medals, he talked about having a piece of paper on his bedside table that said, winning, breaking the world record and winning all those ones. So it's not that you do one or the other. The important thing is like bringing those things together that really set you up for success. It's the dream, but making the dream a reality by grounding it in really easy goals and tasks that you can do each day that takes you that one step closer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. So in looking at your background, it looks like, and I think you alluded to this as well, which was you worked a long time in the consulting business and going out on your own, being a solopreneur, starting up, going into business for yourself didn't feel so much like you or your identity. And then you talked us through the conversation that you had with your friend that got your mind thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then Oracle gives you your big break. So by the time you got started, you were already kind of pretty well established and experienced in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is your first business, and you were. It felt like you had a good mindset for how you're approaching things. But how did that 6 months go for you? Did you hit the ground running, or was it kind of a slow burn where you're really trying to figure things out? I'm sure it was a little bit of both.
I was going to say, I think it's
talk to us about those first 6 months.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's interesting because I'm experiencing a lot of, as I work with my clients, that, there's also the things that I experience as to bring into that. And I think one of the things that I talk about with individual leaders and actually organizations is the leadership transitions that we go through. So I come in as that individual contributor. I then move into being a manager and what that transition looks like. And then I become a leader of leaders, and there's a transition there was for sure that transition for me of I'm now I've built all of my skills of being good at what I do, but now I'm having to transition in terms of helping others be brought into what my vision is and be part of that and want to work with me. And also, the discipline of setting some of these. I'm not the most organized, and I will put my hand up and admit to that. I'm not the most organized and I'm not the most structured. So therefore, it's about how do I bring in people that can help with that? It's not about doing it on my own, but then it's also about me letting go of some of that control as well, so that it isn't just all on my shoulders. So, and that can sometimes be hard, especially when you feel responsible for, the success of that business and making sure that you can win work for other people and to be part of it. Then that's a different way of looking at it from being a contractor, where you're just winning work for your own gain and for your own sort of personal finance. It's a different set in that way. So yeah, I think that transition of not just leaning on what I know and what I'm good at, but accepting and acknowledging where might be some of my gaps. What might I need to stop paying attention to? How do I get other people to help me and support me? And yeah, it is mainly me on my own, but I have, a great team around me, and team can be within the business, but I also kind of go an external team that you kind of corral around you to just make you feel like you're not doing this on your own. And that's where I think Goldman Sachs was a huge thing, is that, I've got 40 other entrepreneurs who are experiencing the same experiences as me, and how can we learn and grow with each other rather than feeling like it's a competition part of it. It's like the best thing is that how we can collaborate and make each other better.
Yes.
Absolutely. So what I'm hearing during those first 6 months, there's a lot of identifying your strengths and weaknesses. What do I do well? What do I do really poorly that I can bring someone in to shore up those weaknesses and those gaps and fill those in?
Yeah.
Now, what was the most difficult challenge? You remember when you were starting up and things are maybe kind of getting along a little bit, and then you go, oh man, I didn't see this coming. Did you have a difficult moment like that?
Always. I think the ones that kind of are the most challenging and the most difficult, I would say, are the helping make sure that everybody else is set up to deliver a great job. And so, so for instance, Oracle wanted to work with me because I'd been working with them previously, but then I have to get a team that also they're going to trust and that they see has got, high quality. And that kind of, again, that kind of transition and stepping away of not me doing the full delivery of everything, but how do I make sure that I bring on great people and also allow them to be themselves and authentic and not feel like, oh, you have to do it this way. So I think there's something about how you make sure that you get the right people involved that are living your values as well, kind of thing. So I think that was a big part. And then actually one of the biggest challenges was because it was global. I mean, I did end up working around the clock. So
that's true. I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, the different time zones. Oh my gosh.
Different. It was, really. And the worst time zone was actually doing the European ones because it was through the night. I'm Asia Pac.
Those people from the UK are so challenging. Always those people from the UK.
I know, right?
They are difficult. Yeah.
So difficult.
That's so interesting. I love how you keep kind of delving into the different pieces. Like, I was good at this, and here's like an area that I hadn't done before, like finding talent. You're really good at developing the talent, but you've never really had the need to locate them and make sure that and then like building a culture. Like, I'm sure you had a culture at the old company. Like, how do I build my own culture?
Yeah.
Like, and then sales you brought up. Like, I know I'm really good. I know I have a ton of experience. I've been doing this for a long time, and everyone tells me I'm good. That's why they're begging to come to my company when they can't work with me anymore. But now you have to sell it to other people that don't know you. So it's like each of these new pieces you kind of covered in a little category there about what you're good at, and this is an area I need to find help or get better at. So can you talk about how you walk through that?
Yeah, that's definitely something kind of like I'm in the mix now. So as I said, it was kind of back to front. I got given an opportunity to, with a client, and now it's more of, well, people don't necessarily know Bia Mindset. So how do I get Bia Mindset out into the open, into ether, and kind of build our reputation and build our brand? And so those are some of the challenges I'd say that are definitely experiencing currently right now. But they're good challenges. They're like exciting challenges. I think the thing that I notice is, how do I make sure that my plates are spinning in the way that I want them to spinning, and I'm not darting around to make sure that they don't come crashing down, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many different pieces. Yeah. You got a lot of balls in the air that you're bouncing right now.
Exactly. And I do love that. But the watch out is making sure that I'm in control of that, and that it's not like suddenly getting this overwhelmed, and that I'm like, darting around and going, where do I now place my attention and focus? So there's, like I said before, there's only so much that you can do. So being really clear on what is it that I need to do today, and what is it that's going to, come further down the line, just being realistic with that, and not putting too much pressure on myself to think that I need everything now, because people can look at it and go, oh, you've got Oracle as a client, you're really successful. Well, that's one client. That doesn't make you a success forever. So yeah, there's kind of managing that, I would say.
Yeah, and getting that scalability plan locked in. One of the words that you keep referencing that I'm personally been struggling with lately is resilience. And I was wondering if you could talk about sort of how you work with your clients on developing their leaders to build resilience. Is there kind of like a short, simple pep talk you can give on, here's the things that are critical to help build this critical skill?
Yeah. So yes, there's a few different ways. It depends on like what it is that you're actually looking for. Are you wanting to be educated on knowing some more around how to develop your resilience, which is one thing. So if it's around information and education and sort of sharing some of that insights, then we can do things, like a webinar where it's kind of leaning into your curiosity and exploring it. And of course, giving you some takeaways to be able to start putting things into practice. But what we know is, to change behaviors, it takes time, and we're creatures of habit. We like to do what we like to do. And sort of when someone asks us to do something different, it's like when you go to the gym at the beginning of the year, you have all of these like intentions of, I'm going to go to the gym, and the gym's really busy in January because everyone goes. but it's around how, and then it lessens off. It's how do you create that habit? And so if it's about creating new habits and sort of forming those new behaviors, then there's different ways of doing it. So we can go through workshops around that, which is very much directed and designed in terms of helping shift behaviors and help you formulate what's my resilient recipe. Everybody's recipe is slightly different. The way that I switch off is going to be very different to how you switch off, Doug, or you switch off, Jonathan. So it's around being able to understand and learn that, but also put you through some experiential things as well to really understand, well, how do I experience being under pressure? How do I experience when my resilience is being tested? So then you can really formulate the ways to be able to build and sort of deal with those moments in better. So really kind of relating it into the real world. And sort of part of that as well is that I coach people one-on-one, who go, I really want to work on this and work on it more, of really getting under the surface of really understanding, well, how does this play out in your world on a day-to-day?
Right.
How can we really get a better understanding of how you see that in that way, or why you react in that way. And then I think there's two forms of resilience, as well as understanding how I react, my reactive resilience, but also building our proactive resilience, which means that I can deal with the reactive one and not be, not kind of like do it from an emotional place, but do it where I'm responding, which means I have a better impact on myself and other people. So building those two things is my reactive resilience in the moment, but also what do I do to build my proactive to help me do that in the first place?
That's so awesome. One thing I really love about your story is I always find it a much more seamless transition to being an entrepreneur when you've really perfected your craft sort of in the corporate world and you know that you're really good, you're a high achiever there. It's such an easier transition than the people that are just like, oh, I'm just going to, I think I can be good at this. I'm going to go figure it out. So I think that that's an important piece that I think of a lot of young entrepreneurs sort of miss out on is it makes the learning curve so much shorter if you already have a network of people, you already had built-in clients, you already had a big support system and a lot of the knowledge. So that's something that I think a lot of people should really pay attention to as they go through our episodes. Is there certain real tricks, to making it a higher success rate as an entrepreneur? And it sounds like you've checked a lot of those boxes.
I'd say as well that I think entrepreneurs that are starting out who have got a really great idea, that are really passionate and bought into it and believe in what they're doing, even if they don't have the experience, I think if they are willing to learn along the way and maintain that learning mindset as they go through it, to know that it's okay that you're not going to get it right all the time. As long as you learn from that mistake and it doesn't happen again, then I think that builds all of what we're talking about as you go along. So I think if someone was starting it in a different place who hadn't got that experience, my advice would be is to just make sure that you maintain curious, keep that learning mindset around what you can learn and what you can take, and don't see failures as failures, see it as an opportunity to learn and grow and get better. But that means that you do need to take the time to pause and reflect on that and not just always be in it, like on the hamster wheel. So I think that that's something I would definitely get across to new entrepreneurs, as well as actually as you're going on, that is give yourself the time to take a step back and really reflect on, well, what's working and what's not working. When it didn't go right, what's the lesson that I'm taking from that to make sure that I use it as I go forward? And I think that that's the only thing that you can ask of yourself to really help you to get to where you want to get to.
That's awesome.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you don't need 2 decades in the corporate world before you can go out and become a successful entrepreneur.
No, I don't think so. I think that every entrepreneur has a different story and a different starting point. I think sometimes it takes, for me, an external factor to go, or signs in the universe to say, you should do this. and we're giving you, giving you an opportunity, that's when you have to stop and listen.
Yeah, your opportunity was like bashing you over the head, like, Fiona, the opportunity's
come
here.
on, Fiona.
Wake up, come on.
What are you doing with your life?
Not the same.
Get on the bus. Let's go.
Not the same way for everyone, but I like how the world made it so obvious for you.
Yeah, but I think listening to some of the podcasts that you had, and also other entrepreneurs that are out there, I think the thing that is the same with all of us is that we are really passionate about what we're doing. Like, we have this love for it that we really see success either in the idea itself or just the idea of building something. It's that passion part of it. And I think that's, and again, when working in a lot of corporate organizations, that's what helps to bring it back to is like, why are you there in the first place? Because understanding your why and your purpose really means that, it's okay that I've had a bad day today and it's been, it's not gone right, because I'm where I'm supposed to be, rather than just going through the motions. And so I think an entrepreneur can start at any time, as long as they are really clear on why they're doing it and what their passion is. And I think that's a good starting place to be. Otherwise, it's just going to be a hard road, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Knowing your why helps you get through those lows that we're all going to face and experience as we go through this journey. So one of the things I strongly believe is where we are today is a collection of all of the decisions and choices that we've made along the way and the actions that we've taken, based on those choices and decisions. Mm-hmm. Do you have a single decision that you look back on when you look back over the last 20 years? Do you have one that stands out like, man, that was the one thing I did that really gave me the most ROI and is the strongest reason why I'm sitting where I am today?
When I decided when I was doing my master's so at this time when I was doing my master's, I really wanted to be an applied sports psychologist. That's all that I ever seen, sport and sort of this sports psychology element and working with people. It was a bit of an unknown entity when I was doing it. It gives away my age a little bit, but it was a very unknown entity. And I think deciding to take that leap into business was what has got me to where I've got to today. If you'd asked me in my college and university years if I would be working in business as a businesswoman, an entrepreneur, I'd have been like, nah, I don't, I'm done. Not for me. But now, and that's part of actually some of the stuff that I'm now having to learn is that, my background isn't business. My background is performance. And so I get all of that stuff. But now building a business, there's a hell of a lot, like reading financial statements whenever I had to do that.
Yeah.
So,
writing your own financial statements.
Yes, exactly. That is where I get other people to come in and help me with this.
Smart.
But that's also why, going on to Goldman Sachs was a real driver for doing that, is that I acknowledge that there's a lot of areas that I don't have, even though I find myself where I am today. So continuing to learn. But yeah, that would be the moment, I would say, is when I found out about Lane 4 and went, oh, this sounds really interesting. This is intriguing. And then I emailed them to say, what do I need to do to get a job with you when I graduate from my master's?
Wow, what an impactful decision.
Yeah, I was very determined to get a job.
That's awesome. I love, you keep referencing the Goldman Sachs thing. So I think that actually has some good lessons in it of itself. Can you just do a quick summary for the audience? So you're starting Bia, and how did you hear about this Goldman Sachs opportunity? It sounds like it's given you so much valuable connections, information, confidence. How did you even hear about it, and what did you do to get in it?
Yeah. So there was an influencer in the UK who I follow on Instagram, had launched a jewelry line and had got onto this program. And so she was sort of storying it on her feed and was just saying, what a great opportunity. If you're a small business, then, I can't recommend this enough. And so I then just looked in to see, I wonder whether they do that here in the US. And they did. And then that was how it kind of spoke. So I looked at it and I was just like, this is incredible what you get out of this and like what they cover. It's so holistic in terms of, growth opportunity and exploring that, marketing, finance, leadership, people, hiring, all of it, that kind of gives you a good sort of overview of the things that are helpful to be paying attention to and sort of executing on. So yeah, that was it. That was the kind of.
But you would have never had it if you weren't looking for it, and if you didn't put yourself out there and know that, hey, I need to learn some new things. I want to learn some new things. I think that's such a valuable trait, to be seeking out those resources, because sounds like it was like totally, direction changing for you. Like, this can fast track the growth of my new company.
Yeah, hugely.
But like, you just saw an Instagram influencer posting about it, and look how it changed your life. Like, you got to seek out these things and you got to follow through on them, because they can really impact you.
I think it's just like being open to stuff. And so like when like we were saying, the universe open to say you should launch your own business. I think that I'm a big believer of like, when you are thinking something and it's kind of, we're sort of like in our mind a little bit, things become more apparent and obvious to us. So we see things that support and validate this thought or this feeling or this idea that I've got, that kind of then just brings everything together. So I think, being open to seeing some of those things and sort of, being curious about, well, what if I did do that? And what if I did launch my own business? What would that really look like? And then I think it kind of has a snowball effect on that.
I love that. There's one question that keeps coming up in my mind. I'm hearing you talk about your vast experience dealing with business leaders and entrepreneurs and everything. And it's what I hear from the feedback I get from our audience a lot. And I wanted to run it past you. So sorry for shooting you with this, but a lot of our audience is thinking about starting something on their own, and they're just so fearful about doing it, or they're in the middle of it. They just started and they are trying to figure it all out. What piece of advice do you have to that general audience of aspiring or starting entrepreneurs that are really struggling with those early days, or just thinking about doing it? Is there something that you can tell them from all your experience that would say like, hey, here's like something that can help you?
Yeah, there's a process that I go through, and actually this came from the world of sport and sort of use it in business. And I would say, hands down, this is probably the best framework that I would ever share with anybody, is that bringing together your why, your what and your how. So kind of, we call it like a goal tree framework.
Okay.
But work through that first and foremost. So like, if you've got this idea, it's about, making that dream into a reality. Okay, so I've got this dream.
Yes.
So if I think about it in the world of sport, I want to win an Olympic gold medal. Okay, so that's like out there. I don't really have that much control over whether I win a gold medal or not.
Right.
I could put myself into the best position, but it is what excites me, and it is what gets me up in the morning to go, why I'm training and why I'm doing those things. So if I want to win a gold medal, we then need to break it down to go, okay, so what needs to be true for that to happen? Well, you're going to have to get selected to be on an Olympic team first, right? And then we also know that, to win a gold medal, say in the 100 meters for a guy, you're going to have to be running around 9 seconds. There's data and information out there that shows you, for you to be a success, this is some of those performance measures that are going to help you get to where you want to get to. So they're like your tracking, your indicators. Then it's breaking it down. Okay, so if I am to run less than 10 seconds or less than 9 seconds, how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to have to get up and I'm going to have to train. I'm going to have to watch my diet. All of these things that are very the disciplines, the habits, the routines, the tasks that can get mundane. But if all you do is do that and don't remind yourself of why you're doing it, then of course it's going to get really hard. And it's the same thing for an entrepreneur or in business. The day-to-day is going to get really, really hard. There's going to be lots of stuff that you're going to have to work through, and being really clear that what you're working on is actually going to get you where you want to get to. So it's giving you that high value of sitting there. So I need to remind myself of, why am I putting myself through this hardship, this difficulty?
Yes.
Why have I chosen to be in this position right now when it really sucks? Nothing's going right. Everything's really hard and all of those things. Is I have to remind myself of the why. But when I actually want to make it happen, I can't be thinking about, oh, this great idea, how amazing it's going to be when I get there. I have to put in the hard work to get it. So for me, it's like working through that to, one, give me a sense of drive and motivation around why I'm doing it, but also give me a sense of control of what can I do today that's going to help me get there. So I think a lot of people miss that.
Yeah, that's such good advice. I think a lot of people, just sort of rush into it without laying out that framework. And the way that you just said that, I think I'm going to clip that part out and put it up just on itself, because I think a lot of people's like, oh, you know what, this is critical for me to even make this become a reality. I have to know, like, what are the processes I have to go through. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for going through that.
Do you know what as well? Because I think you talked about, like, you know, we make choices and therefore that's our actions. If you go through that process, and I've coached people where I've coached them through this process and we've got the plan on a page and they can see it. It's visual. It's right there in front of me. It's then going, how much do you then want to do that? So when I see the reality of the hard work of what's it going to take, some people will go, actually, do you know what? That's just not for me. I can't see myself doing that. So then, you know, you've answered the question. Well, that's not the direction I need to go in. Or you go in, look at it and go, do you know what? That really excites me. And yes, this has given me even more gutso to go, I'm going to make this happen. This is what my destiny is. So I also think it's a good practice to go through to help you decide before even making some of those steps, or even investing any time or money or whatever it is have you really thought this through in a way that you understand what's going to be, you know, expected of you to get there?
Yeah, it's a great way to, like, filter out and screen out things that, you know, maybe you would otherwise just jump into it and, you know, burn 3, 6, 12 months of your life.
And I've seen entrepreneurs do that.
Yeah.
That wasn't at all what I wanted, and it didn't align with what I, you know, want to become or have in my life.
Exactly. We get caught up in the shiny thing, the glittery
the
thing that's sparkling.
Yeah, the finish line.
Exactly. But, you know, there's a lot of steps that I have to take. So I think sometimes that's, you know, where I've seen, unfortunately, some entrepreneurs never quite make it because they haven't had the discipline of thinking, what's actually, involved in this, and also the ability to bring others along with them to help them get there along the way. It's, you know, you don't need to see it as something that you have to have control over absolutely everything. It's, you know, where are the things that you really sort of paint that picture, paint that direction, but also allowing the freedom for people to kind of help you build your vision and dream too.
Yes. Fiona, you're so brilliant. I feel like we're so lucky to have you sharing this info with us today.
I'm going to take that clip. And share it.
I love it. One of the questions that we ask all of our guests is, how would you personally define entrepreneurship?
Great question. I define it as you choosing what it is that you are doing day to day with your career, that you are defining your own rules, the way that you're going to do it, and sort of setting something in motion that's not being done anywhere else. So you're the one that's kind of dictating what the rules are and dictating what success looks like. So I think it's, for me, entrepreneurship is that freedom and choice about doing something that I love, and me being the one that defines how that becomes a reality, instead of someone telling me, oh, you need to go and do this, or these are what your KPIs are, or this is what your objectives are. Actually, I can create that for myself.
No, thanks. I'll tell myself what my KPIs are. Thank you.
And sometimes they may move slightly.
I love it. That was great. This has been such needless to say, it's been such an unbelievable episode. So thank you so much for sharing all this with us, all your experience, all your knowledge.
Of course.
I think it's going to be really, really, one of these episodes that I think some of our audience will just listen to a few times, because there were so many chunks in there. It's just like, oh man, like I needed to hear this. I mean, even for me, like a few of the things with the podcast and some with my other businesses, it's just like, oh yeah, that's a really, really good point. So thank you so much for making the time for us.
No, of course. Thank you for having me. This has just been so much fun. I've really enjoyed it. So thanks.
Yeah, you have such a bright and beautiful personality, and then the wisdom and the knowledge to back it all up. So we appreciate you bringing all that to us and to the audience today. And we know you're going to do huge things with Bia. We're excited for you.
Thank you. Fingers crossed.
I know that a lot of people are going to want to reach out to you. So where should we send them?
So my email is Fiona, so Fiona at Bia, BIA, and then mindset.com. And then they can go to my website as well. And I also have a LinkedIn profile under Fiona Roberts. So yeah, reach out. It'll be great to speak to anyone and everyone.
Awesome. Fiona, thank you again. This has been really, really incredible.
Thank you.
Be sure to check out all the tools and tips for aspiring entrepreneurs at findyourfreedompod.com.